there has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael by there.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon, a retired 27-year veteran NYPD sergeant. And with me today is retired NYPD detective and straight out of Brooklyn, Phil Grimaldi. How you doing today, Phil?
Not great, Billy, based on the late breaking news. Not great at all.
Yeah, folks, we're going to cover, of course, the Kaitlin Armstrong hunt. She's the one who shot the professional bicyclist Moriah Wilson. We're also going to cover the Gonzalo Lopez hunt. But folks, if you haven't heard, breaking news: a active shooter in Texas, Uvalde, Texas, at an elementary school, has shot and killed 15 kids, one teacher, and of course, he was engaged by police who shot and killed him. Just a horrible, horrible story, and it seems like these stories are getting more and more prevalent out there, and it's just a horror. It's a horrible thing to cover. It's a horrible thing that we have in this country. But I want to play some of the news report on it so we get an idea of what's going on, where it is, and we'd be remiss if we didn't cover this.
15 people are dead after a mass shooting, including 14 children and one teacher. A gunman opening fire on campus earlier today. Again, you are taking a live look there. You can see a stretcher being rolled out. The governor also saying he does believe the gunman is dead. All right, this is a live look from the air now. You can see authorities on the scene. Very active scene there. Again, a stretcher being rolled out from Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. Now, we are waiting for an update from law enforcement. Of course, we'll bring that to you live as soon as it happens. But we do want to let you listen in to what Governor Abbott had to say just a short time ago.
The shooter was Salvador Romas, an 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun, and he may have also had a rifle, but that is not yet confirmed according to my most recent report. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher. Mr. Romas, the shooter, he himself is deceased and is believed that responding officers killed him.
All right, we just heard from Governor Abbott there, who addressed the media just a short time ago. Again, hearing that it was a teenage shooter. We know 14 children dead, one teacher deceased as well. Let's get right to News Nation correspondent Kelly Beeson, who is joining us live here in the newsroom. Kelly, what else do we know so far?
Well, Nicole, earlier the school district had said that all schools in the district were locked down because of gunshots in the area, adding that the city's civic center was being used as a reunification area for families there. Robb Elementary School in Uvalde has an enrollment of just under 600 students. It's a 2nd through 4th grade school, and according to their calendar on the school's website, there was only 2 days of school left until dismissal for the summer. Again, according to Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Salvador Romas, the 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde, it's believed that he abandoned his vehicle with a handgun, possibly a rifle, shot and killed 14 students and a teacher. He is deceased, the suspect, and it's believed that responding officers killed him. Governor Abbott also noting that Ramos killed his grandmother before entering the school and is a former student of Uvalde High School. Nicole.
All right, Kelly Beeson live for us here in the newsroom. Thank you for that. All right, we want to head out to independent journalist Allie Bradley. Allie Bradley is live for us on the scene, on the ground out there. Allie, I don't know how long you have been there. Kind of describe what you're seeing now and describe what you've seen since you've been there.
So I got on the scene shortly after it started happening, and they actually
had us pretty close before they started pushing media out to the perimeter a little bit. And when I first arrived on, it was very active, and there started to be actually other calls around the area for responses. So the police started to deploy really.
You know, folks, she's got really bad audio. She's responding from the scene. Just, you know, this story speaks for itself. An active shooter, 14 students. I believe this school is second and third graders, so they're little babies, you know. A teacher dead before he went into this school. He killed his grandmother, and luckily he was killed by responding police officers. But just a horrible, horrible thing. You know, folks in the chat, I'm going to go past something because she's on horrible audio.
In all likelihood, there were warning signs. Someone in the community knew. We see that in almost 2/3 of the cases where schools are attacked. What's unusual about this one is it's in an elementary school. Not a lot of attacks on an elementary school. We can think of Hubbard Woods in Winnetka, Illinois, and Sandy Hook are two of the most notable examples there, where 6 and then over 20 people were shot at those sites. So they really have tragic consequence when younger and younger people are targeted by folks that we should have had good opportunities for intervention long before this is happening.
You know, and Phil, you mentioned other mass shootings in the past. Obviously, you know, we want to focus on this one. But, you know, just a little over a week ago, we had yet another mass shooting with also a teenage gunman. You're mentioning there's this emotional connection. You know, one thing I think about is elementary schools in general at this point tend to be locked down almost immediately. You know, once school starts, schools are locked down. So, you know, I'm kind of wondering, obviously, what happened here. I know we're all asking questions. We're still, of course, waiting for more information. But that's something that we're seeing, which has been a direct result of all of these mass shootings. Schools tend to be locked down. People cannot just gain access.
But I suspect that this was at some transitional moment for the school, that very difficult to penetrate a school at this point for most of the country. But at transitional times like recess, end of school release, a field trip, gym class outside, those are times that the student body can be vulnerable, and it's more and more difficult to protect against somebody who has their mind set on causing mayhem.
You are absolutely right, Phil, and mayhem is exactly what was created in this situation. Phil, stick around. We're going to actually bring back independent journalist Allie Bradley, who was live on the scene, to join us in this discussion. So, you know, Allie, tell us again what you've seen so far since you've been there. I know you said you arrived shortly after this happened.
Yes, you're exactly right. As soon as I arrived on scene, we were actually very, very close to where the school shooting took place. Obviously, I think you guys have some images of the vehicle as well. So what I can tell you here is that this 18-year-old was actually a murder suspect, and there was a bolo out for his vehicle, which is why the pursuit started in the first place. It ended here near the elementary school, and then they actually ended up running into the elementary school. And when police officers and Border Patrol and other agencies arrived on scene, they found loaded magazines, AR-style magazines, on scene outside of the elementary school. They also found loaded ammunition and guns inside of the vehicle as well. As you mentioned, he killed at least 15 people. He himself is dead. He shot his grandmother as well. Now, I can tell you, I just got confirmation from a very credible source saying that a BORTAC agent, which is the SWAT arm, basically, of Border Patrol, is the person who was able to take down that shooter and ultimately end his life and end that shooting spree as well.
All right, so this was not, this shooter then did not take his own life from what we're learning. Allie, can you tell us what time did this all start? Because as you said, the suspected gunman was the subject of a bolo, of being on the lookout.
Mm-hmm. So again, he was a murder suspect that they were looking for. So when this pursuit began, what time is it now? 4 o'clock. This was about 4 hours ago. Let me look at my information here to give you an exact time. So at 11:40 this morning is when they actually got the active shooter via communication. And I'm looking at a breakdown of their timeline right now that I got from, again, a very credible source here on the ground. And they deployed several units within moments between with U.S. Border Patrol, Texas DPS, which is the Department of Public Safety. DPS's SWAT team was also dispatched, and so was the air team as well through DPS. So multiple agencies arrived here. They were dispatched within 5 minutes of the first communication that this was going on. About 12:11, there were more medics requested, and that's when they were doing the rounds around the school and found multiple AR-style fully loaded magazines near the building. Students were evacuated. They were taken to the Civic Center. Now, I can tell you one of my sources, who's a Border Patrol agent, has a student that goes to the school, a third grader, and we didn't know if he was safe for hours. It was a really, really scary scene for the mother. Hopefully she is, okay. She's very shaken up right now, but she's waiting for her other student to be released from school because all of the surrounding schools were also on lockdown.
Now, Allie, do we know, have the students at Robb Elementary specifically? I know you said it has an enrollment of about 1,600. Have those students been reunited with their families at this point?
Folks, one of the things I want everyone to realize in the chat that this is an ongoing investigation. So this is preliminary. Right now, it's being reported that 14 students are dead. One teacher is dead. It's been confirmed that he shot and killed his grandmother before he got to this school, and he was shot dead by law enforcement. So, as I said, this is constantly it's any type of investigation like this. The initial information you get is always going to change because you can't get accurate information out quickly. This happened.
Really, it's very fluid at this point. I think the initial reports changed. Initially, when I saw it, it said one person or two persons dead, and then it changed pretty rapidly. And obviously, there's reading on the internet, there's people in the hospital that were injured. So we don't know. Hopefully, I would hope and pray that the numbers would go down, but it's likely that they could increase. And like you said, when it's fluid like this, a lot of the details are misreported. But I think it's safe to say that 14 students dead and one teacher dead, as you're seeing on the screen. It's horrible. Just gives me a knot in my stomach and gives me flashbacks of Sandy Hook. Same type of situation with just grade school kids too. Second, third, and fourth grade, this school supposedly was teaching kids. Just horrible.
Folks, this is also more difficult to take because it's coming, I guess, about a week after the active shooter in Buffalo, where that white supremacist went into that Tops in a mostly black, all black neighborhood and just started picking people off. So it's just a horrible thing. I know I see some people in the chat that are Europeans and they question why does this only happen in the United States? Well, it doesn't only happen, and this happens more frequently in this country than other countries, probably because of our access to guns, the right to keep and bear arms. And I don't want to get political at all about this today. It's not the day to get political about this. And you can already see there's people already trying to get political about this. The New York Times has already put out some story about the NRA has their convention or something in a couple of days here in Texas. I wish the New York Times would just shut up once in a while.
I'm with you on
they're
that.
a dishonest newspaper. And, if anyone disagrees with me, that's my feelings. They frequently they report by omission and commission. Omission, if they don't agree with something, they simply don't report on it.
Right.
And then they pour gasoline on things that they do agree with. And this is really disturbing. I think everyone in this country is looking for a solution to how to thwart these active shooting cases. And, security has been upped. It was suggested that many of these schools have armed law enforcement working there at all times. That recommendation hasn't been followed everywhere, but it's much tougher security anywhere in this country because of this type of active shooter incident. But still, they still find ways. The FBI agent that we heard was like, there's times when students are outside the school on the playground. Students are supposed to play. Part of their school that's part of going to school. Part of the socialization of growing up is to go outside your school, play kickball, play basketball, play softball, play baseball. That's part of your growing up. And they're outside the school, and that's when they're most vulnerable to these incidences.
You know, Billy, I just want to say this comes very personal for me because my wife works in a school. The school that she works in has a fortified door. It's protected with a buzzer. You can't get in. There's a video monitor where when you come there, they ask you, what's your business here? They really do their due diligence to protect the school. However, like you said, Billy, when kids are out playing, they're in the schoolyard or whatever it is outside the school. I mean, we can't stop letting kids be kids, but I just feel like every school, an elementary school all the way up to colleges, should be protected with fortified doors. There should be an armed person, whether it be a retired police officer, retired military, or just a security personnel that's trained in active shooter drills. The schools, both of my children's schools, they do these active shooter drills, and my wife's school as well. They do the active shooter drills where they'll lock down, they'll hide, they'll fortify the door with the best they can with the tools that are in place, whether it be putting desks in front of the door. But it sounds this like this was a person. Probably a bolo was put out on this guy that he was wanted on this homicide of his grandmother, and somehow or another he wound up by the school. I don't know if he targeted the school specifically or if he had a connection to the school. That's usually what happens in these type of cases, but it looks like there was a pursuit, and then he went into the school and he just took it out on these poor innocent kids. I got to tell you, and I said it to you, Bill, before we went on the air, what world are we living in where you can just target little kids, second, third, and fourth graders? I can't even imagine. I'm so sick by this. It's just so upsetting and so distressing. And I don't know, the things that were put out after Sandy Hook about fortifying the doors and having an armed security guard. Every school in the country, every school, not just high schools, every school in the country should have a fortified door, a video system, a buzzer, and an armed security personnel. Like I said, either retired law enforcement, retired military. And then, when there's the house of worship locations during religious holidays, we have visits. When we were on patrol, Billy, we'd go do visits at sensitive locations like churches, synagogues, mosques, etc. Well, all the schools should have visits periodically during the day. So if someone does case a school out to do an active shooting type situation, they'll see police officers are visiting the school. It might thwart a plot to try and hurt innocent children. I mean, what worse can it be? Just innocent children at school in this. It's just so
It's
heartbreaking.
ridiculous. Let me go back to News Nation to their report to go back to the scene.
This point.
From what I understand, most of them at this juncture have. Again, they were removed from the school and taken to the Civic Center. Some of them, like I said, my agent was able to be reunited with their son. So for the most part, I think these families have since been reunited, but I don't have full confirmation that every single family member knows the location of their child right now.
All right, Allie, stick around for us. I want to bring Phil back. Phil, from what we've just learned from Allie here, saying that this happened at approximately 11:40 a.m. local time, that would be central. So right before noon. You mentioned that, sometimes shooters can gain access during those transition periods. If we're thinking right around noon, that could be lunch, that could be recess. That does seem to fall in line with exactly what you said.
Indeed. And it sounds like the law enforcement response, again, in these situations, every agency responds. And in this case, it was Federal Border Patrol that we're getting at least preliminary information that that's who engaged this assailant and took him down.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. I want to talk about some of the law enforcement on the scene. Who will now take over this investigation in your best estimation? Obviously, this is continuing to evolve, and we're waiting for confirmation and updates from law enforcement. But who would take over in a situation like this?
Right now, this is going to be supported by multiple agencies that have responded. Certainly the FBI, the ATF will be there, but local and county law enforcement.
Folks, the way this would be, if this occurred in New York City, the New York City Police Department would be the lead agency, and all those other agencies that he mentioned would assist. And in an incident like this, believe me, law enforcement wants as much help as they can possibly get. The ATF, the FBI, in this case, the Border Patrol, all of those agencies are welcomed in and be partners with the local agency that is unfortunately going to be the agency that is going to have to, what we call, catch this case and investigate this case and get to the bottom of this case But as I said, they're going to have a lot of help from other law enforcement agencies, and thank God for that.
This will fall under their jurisdiction unless there's some indication of a nexus to domestic terrorism or international terrorism. But the preliminary information is clear that this is a local suspect that law enforcement was in pursuit of and knew of his dangerousness. And so there was already Ebola out, and whether he was targeting this school and
folks, and I'm just taking for granted that maybe you don't know, Ebola is be on the lookout for, and I just don't. If you know what that is, fine. I just want to let everyone know that that's what Ebola stands for.
Had made a beeline for that school, or this just became a target of opportunity as he was trying to escape. We don't know yet.
Right. Still waiting to find out that information. Again, authorities identifying the shooter as 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, who is deceased. Authorities saying that he shot his grandmother shortly before this incident at Robb Elementary. He was then the focus of a bolo, a be on the lookout. And as our independent journalist, Allie Bradley, has said, he then fled to the scene here at the school. So, Allie, I know you've been on the scene at this point. This occurred shortly before noon. You've been on the scene now for about 4 hours. Can you kind of describe the chaos when you first arrived on scene for us, Allie?
So it was very, very chaotic. And like I said, I mean, they were deploying to another scene. And so at the scene when I first arrived, I showed up, there were DPS troopers that had blood on their uniforms, that were visibly, trying to figure out exactly what the next move was. They were all communicating. The PIO wasn't available, but I will tell you right now, I would like to bring in actually a gentleman that's standing right here that's actually working on the home right next door. He heard everything. He saw a lot of the situation happen. Can you kind of just describe what you saw happen here, sir?
Yeah, so he crashed into the ditch, and two guys from the funeral home went out there to check on him, and he fired at them. He fired shots.
So he fired shots outside before he even went into the elementary school.
Correct.
Did you see him go into the elementary school?
Yeah, I seen him jump the fence right here. He jumped the fence. He had a backpack, and he had a rifle, and he jumped the fence, and he went to that corner up there, to the back corner on the right, and I believe he shot in there into that window back there, and that's when the cops pulled up over here, and then there was one UCISD police that went all the way in there, and I think that's what caused him to come back this way.
Okay. So he was kind of drawn out by officers a little bit.
By the UCISD police, right?
Okay.
The officers were over here on the street.
Okay. Now, what was your instinct when all of this was happening? I mean, you obviously live in this community. You said this is crazy. You've never seen anything like this happen in Uvalde. So what was your thought when this was going on?
When it first happened, when the shots fired right here in the ditch, I thought maybe the guys were running away because maybe it was going to explode. I didn't know they were with a firearm shot.
Now that you know that at least 15 people have been killed, a teacher and 14 students, and the gunmen as well are dead, where's your head at right now?
It's crazy. You hear about it on national news, and this is national news, and it's crazy. This is the biggest thing that I can remember here in Uvalde.
Can you provide as much as your name that you're comfortable sharing right now, sir? Juan, and you're working on a construction project right here at a house, right adjacent to the school.
Right.
And have you had any police talk to you? Has anybody asked you what you saw? Have you been
the sheriff came by and he said, just to stay away from the area. He said someone's face got shot at, and I've heard other people say that. Do you know anything about it? Maybe he shot his grandma?
So his grandmother was also shot. Yes. Right before he came here.
Right, yeah, that's what I heard too.
Okay, Juan. Well, I'm going to let you get back to work. Right. I appreciate your time. So Juan witnessed basically the bailout when he stopped the vehicle and ran through into the school grounds, as you just heard.
Allie, Molly, I don't know if Juan is still there, but can you ask him? I know he said that two people tried to approach the suspect after he had crashed his black pickup truck. Can you ask Juan, did the suspect appear to be focused on the school? Did he appear to be randomly running, just kind of fleeing the scene? What was his impression?
Did the suspect look like he was going for the school, or that he was?
That's what I was thinking about earlier. What I thought when I heard he shot his grandma, I thought he was fleeing from the scene over here. I thought if he wouldn't have crashed, I don't think he would have gone to
So you don't think that his agenda and his mission was the school? Hello, sir.
I don't believe if he would have crashed, I don't believe he would have gone towards the school. I think he went towards the school because he crashed.
And he crashed about a football field away from the entrance of the school.
Right. And I think maybe, I don't know,
any questions,
a killer's mind.
provide a statement.
Okay, there is now a press conference happening. Let's listen in.
Thank you, Juan. Okay. So, hi, sir. I'm Allie Bradley. I've been actually covering the border I've been covering the border
Well, folks, just to recap, in Texas, Uvalde Elementary School, 14 kids, second through fourth graders, were shot dead. A teacher was killed. Prior to the perpetrator getting to this elementary school, the Uvalde Elementary School in Texas, he shot and killed his grandmother, and he was engaged by responding police, and he was killed on the scene. Now, this is fluid. A lot of this information could surely change. We didn't intend on covering this today, but we thought we would be remiss in our duties not to cover this story. It would be like covering a lesser story while ignoring this story that obviously is a problem nationally in the United States. These active shooter cases, too many of them. I would say we probably get, and I'm just off the top of my head, we'll probably get 10 to 15 of these a year. And I mean, one is too many, but just a horrible, horrible thing. And it's cultural. Yeah. Active shooter. Everyone knows what an active shooter is these days. There's a definition that covers what an active shooter is, and just ridiculous, just horrendous. Phil?
Well, one of the comments I'm looking at in the chat, it makes a lot of sense. Milwaukee civilian mass shooters generally have several things in common. She mentions 4 of them, but childhood exposure to traumatic violence, serious emotional problems, interest or study of other killers, and access to guns. That last one, access to guns. The last shooting that we had, this guy was making statements and he was allowed to buy a gun. How that could happen is just unbelievable. I also want to know, it doesn't seem like he targeted the school. He was in a pursuit. He crashed his vehicle, and they say he crossed over about the length of a football field to get into the school. How did he gain access to that school? We're living post Sandy Hook. We need to have a situation where to gain access to a school, they have to know who you are. You have to be admitted. How could this not? I mean, fortified doors. This happened such a long time ago. We lost so many lives. How could this happen? I mean, I don't know. Maybe there was an instant where someone opened the door, not knowing who he was, going into the school, and he rushed in. I don't know what happened. We don't know the facts yet. It's all very fluid, but I hope and pray that I'm wrong, that there was that there should have been a fortified door there and access only granted to people that belong in that school. I don't know how he did it. It's just horrible. I'm sure we're gonna find out, but just prayers and condolences to those family, and pray for that town. Those people, I can't even imagine what they're going through, and
let's just listen to Governor Abbott, what he has to say. He's on the scene
in the state of Texas. And there is swift action being taken by local law enforcement as well as the Texas Department of Public Safety. They obviously now know who the shooter was, and the shooter is no longer alive. Let me give you some details, and then I'll give you a summation about that. The shooter was Salvador Romas, an 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun, and he may have also had a rifle, but that is not yet confirmed according to my most recent report. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher. Mr. Romas, the shooter, he himself is deceased and is believed that responding officers killed him. It appears that 2 responding officers were struck by rounds, but have no serious injuries. The Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Department is the investigating agency, and we will provide them and the city of Uvalde substantial investigative and patrol assistance. We're in the process of obtaining detailed background information on the subject, his motive, the types of weapons used, the legal authority to possess them, and conduct a comprehensive crime scene investigation and reconstruction, and identify and interview all witnesses and provide victim services and other support as needed. Victor Escalon is the Texas Department of Public Safety South Texas Regional Director. He is on the scene, and everything that can be done will be done. In addition to that, it is being reported that the subject shot his grandmother right before he went into the school. And I have no further information about the connection between those 2 shootings. And the subject is reported to be to have been a student at Uvalde High School and is a U.S. citizen. Bottom line is this, however, and that is when parents drop their kids off at school, they have every expectation to know that they're going to be able to pick their child up when that school day ends. And there are families who are in mourning right now, and the state of Texas is in mourning with them for the reality that these parents are not going to be able to pick up their children. Our job is multifold. First, to make sure we address exactly what happened at this crime scene, and then second, to make sure we take that information and do everything that is necessary to ensure that crime scenes like this are not going to be repeated in the future, and that we're going to be able to ensure the safety and security of our schools. I'll be happy to take any follow-up question about that they may have. That is the information that I have. It's my understanding that 2 officers were shot, but other than the wounds they sustained, they will not be fatal shots. They're going to survive their being shot.
So, folks, that's the report on Uvalde, Texas, the elementary school there. 14 kids lost their lives. A teacher, the perpetrator, killed his grandmother before going on the shooting spree at this elementary school. And as I said, Phil and I were not going to cover this story today, but we just thought that any story we could possibly cover would pale in the importance to this story, which is the most important story right now. And it seems like, just over a week ago that we had that active shooter in Buffalo. Horrible, and these active shooting incidents. And look, we even have a name for it in this country because they happen so frequently. Active shooters. And the definition of an active shooter is someone that just goes in there with no other purpose than to just kill as many people as possible and doesn't stop unless A, they're stopped by law enforcement, B, they commit suicide, or C, they surrender. In this instance, he was killed by law enforcement, brave law enforcement officers that never hesitate to put their lives on the line in cases like this. And I know it's hard now for us to go from this story and cover the stories that we intended, but I think it's important that we did cover this and we get it out there because impossible to ignore this and cover something lesser and just pretend that this didn't happen. It did happen.
Billy, I just want to say that those 2 police officers that were shot, thank God that they're going to be okay. But think about it. You want to defund the police. What morons come out and say such a stupid thing in a situation like this? These officers were brave. They raced into the situation. They took out this scumbag, that he should rot and burn in hell. And 14 lives were lost, 15 with the teacher. So many others injured. It could have been much worse. You wanted to defund the police. And now those officers that had to respond to it and see those children in the conditions that they were in, they're going to be traumatically impacted with PTS for the rest of their lives. You think they're ever going to forget that? That's what we do when we put on the uniform and the badge and the gun and go to work every day, that we might have to face. And anybody that wants a badmouth a good police officer or officer that's a hero, like those officers that took shots today or those officers that responded, shame on them. Defund the police. Without police, where would we be? Just
No,
sickening.
Phil, you're 100% right. You know, a bunch of years ago when I was teaching college, I invited the chief of police of the Sandy Hook Police Department to speak at the college that I was teaching at. And the topic, of course, was active shooters. And we had invited several other chiefs of police, but he came there. And what a amazing guy he was. And that was one of the biggest questions that everyone asked was, Chief, and I apologize for not remembering his name right now, but and he had subsequently retired, but Chief, how are your cops? How are your cops now? And, you know, for years and years and years, they'll have the image of 20, in that case, 25 and 6-year-olds dead inside an elementary school. That image in your brain that never, ever goes away. And he said his cops took a hit. Tough.
Of course.
Tough to deal with it, you know.
Billy, I could remember every time I had engaged. I mean, listen, there's plenty of memories in my head of people dead and whatnot from homicide investigation. But when it was kids, there's just something about it. It stays with you. It haunts you in a way. And, you know, just to relate a little bit, a few years back, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, my daughter was in high school. She was a senior. We get a call about 11 o'clock in the morning that there's active shooter in the school. My wife and I both happen to be home. We race out to the school. Billy, I tell you, on the way there, driving like a maniac to try and get to that school, I tried to call my brother to get on the computer and, you know, give us updates because we weren't getting information. When he picked up the phone, I couldn't get words out of my mouth. I was so upset and thinking, my God, my daughter could be, you know, laying dead. And I couldn't get words out of my mouth. And then finally I got the words out and my brother was able to decipher from the computer that it may not have been a shooting, may have been a bomb scare. It turned out to be that it was a bomb scare. It wasn't an active shooter. We had erroneous information. But for those 20 minutes that it took us to get to the school, I got to tell you, it aged me. It took years off my life. And here I am, a retired law enforcement officer, did 22 years on the NYPD, saw everything, did everything. I was in gun battles. At that moment, it was like somebody punched me in the stomach. I couldn't get the words out. So I really, really relate to those people, what they must be going through. Just the people that didn't know that maybe their children didn't get hurt, but that those few minutes, those whatever it is, it takes years off your life. And then there's going to be the sorrow in the heart and the heartbreak of the people that lost their children. Condolences to them.
Julie LaRosa, California. Do we know why this 18-year-old did this? Should have taken his own life instead of these children. Julia LaRosa, we don't know. He's dead. We may not ever know exactly what his motive was for this. As we, when we recapped it, we told you that he had killed his grandmother and was on a BOLO report by the police, be on the lookout for. And apparently it's unclear right now, so I don't want to give out false information, but he may have been pursued by police and crashed near this school. He went inside the school. And again, I'm not going to give out false information because it's too early. We don't have all the investigation. People always demand facts, and you don't always have facts early on in an investigation. It takes time to get accurate information. Maureen 100 thought it was 14 kids. Has death count gone up? There are 14 kids are dead. One teacher. The perpetrator is dead, and he killed his grandmother. Can the count will the count go up? We don't know. We hope not. But this is preliminary. The case is a little more than 6 hours old. So all of this can change as the investigation, as all the facts and circumstances come in. Kieran Broderick, we don't know anything yet. As I said, this is preliminary. I always used to say when I was in homicide, you know, you want me to give you information right now? Because it won't be accurate, because it's too soon for me to give you accurate information. If you want information, I'll give you information, but it's not going to be accurate. So do you want to wait till I have accurate information? And a lot of these big bosses on the NYPD thought that they were God, and you should just be able, because I'm a chief, you should be able to tell me what happened. Well, chief, we don't know yet. It takes time. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Again, we're reporting this story because it's an important story. We hadn't planned on reporting this story, but when there's breaking news like this, that's so important, we got right to it. If you're not subscribed to our podcast, go on our YouTube. It's free. Hit our subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Ring that bell. These cases are just so heartbreaking. And again, as I said, we had to cover it. Phil had called me before the show and said, "Did you hear what happened?" And I said, "Yeah." And at first we weren't going to cover it. And I said, "Okay, Phil, we can't ignore this." And he was right. It was his idea. Bob Cosmic, 17 lives gone like that. Well, we don't care that the perpetrator's life was taken. It should have been taken before. Then there would only be one life taken. He wouldn't have killed
To hell with him.
a school teacher and his grandmother, Rocky, good to see you, buddy. Folks, a lot of things with these type of cases, these active shooter cases, there are already people trying to politicize this. Let's give it a day. Let's give it a couple of days. There's 14 kids. I guess a second, third, fourth. What age are they? Second grade. I guess it would probably be 8, 9, and 10, right?
All single digits, I would guess, maybe up to 10, like you said, Billy. But
yeah,
just terrible to even think about. It's just horrible. And
so,
like you said, there's families that are going to have to bury children now. There's other families that are going to have loved ones in the hospital that were injured. I don't think now is the time to politicize this. I don't think one word should come out of any politician's mouth about politics. The only thing that they should come out and talk about is, how do we prevent this? Condolences to the families, thoughts and prayers for the people that did survive it. And let's, acknowledge our law enforcement heroes that put an end to this scumbag's life. And the officers, I hope, a quick and speedy recovery for those 2 officers. That's the kind of stuff that our politicians should be talking about now. Down the line, you want to talk about political stuff, fine, but not now.
Right, exactly. Coffee Girl, how you doing? Just I'm saying hello to some people in the chat. Revenge Australia, you guys know I'm a cop down in Australia. Oh, Australia kids are bad. Yeah, I mean, look, I say all the time, and that these active shooters, there's a mentally ill component to this. Absolutely,
100%
mentally ill, and they have access to guns, and horrible thing to be mentally ill and to have access to guns is just horrendous. And I don't want to make this about gun control or anything. As we said, we're going to try to keep this non-political today. Revenge Australia, thank you for the $14.99 super chat. Good day. I love the way you guys say that. You're Aussie cop. Kids are the worst. Love your show. Thanks so much. You guys are the best. 2 officers. Much love from Australia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. Because one of the things that I sort of like, and maybe people that were never a cop or don't understand, is that in times like this, or even in my private life, I like to be around other cops every once in a while. I don't hang out all the time with other cops, but when I do, I feel much more comfortable and more safe. Well, why do I need to feel safe? Because I've seen the worst of the world, and so has Phil. And when you get that, you're around other cops, you immediately feel that camaraderie, you feel that safety, you feel that you speak the same language. And you feel, security, I guess, in numbers. And if that doesn't make sense to folks in the chat, then maybe you just don't understand where we're coming from. But yeah, that's
it's relatability, Billy. What you're trying to say is we relate to one another. Because, if I could spit something out to you and you key in on it right away, you understand where I'm coming from. Just any conversation about anything, whether it be law enforcement or just private lives or whatever, we kind of relate to one another because we think on the same terms of, having the experience that we had. And it's funny, when I was in the police academy, I can remember right in the beginning that one of the instructors telling me that, 20 years from now, when you go to retire, all of your civilian friends will be gone and you'll only be friends with cops. It was, for the most part, true. That really did happen. But some of my civilian friends became cops along the way that I'm still in touch with today. But the guys that I speak with on a regular basis, for the most part, are cops. But I do have civilian friends as well. But there's something to that. And I guess, we go through this. It's a calling, and you just relate better to other cops. It's a great point, Billy.
Maureen's 100. I'm in nursing and get it. Commonality is very comforting. You're right, Maureen. There's a camaraderie, I guess, for people that have common experiences, and you just feel, I guess, more comfortable around people like that. I guess maybe people that are actors like to be around other actors. People that are firemen. I know firemen love to hang out with other firemen.
Yeah, they're very cliquish.
They're very cliquish, and that just, I guess, that's okay. I think, Antonio, we spend more time with our blue family. There's a lot of truth to that, and someone's just calling me now. Used to be one of my detectives, but he doesn't know that I'm on the air. I'll give him a call later on.
Billy, it's funny. You got that call, and I was just thinking I'll be getting text messages and calls about this incident from my friends that are either retired or even civilians, because it seems like when something happens, they always reach out, or I reach out to them, or they reach out to me, and we just kind of bounce it around. And with this one, though, it's just a horrible, horrible thing. Just terrible.
Coffee Girl, will the officers involved get the opportunity for counseling? I
I'm
certainly
sure.
hope so, Coffee Girl. I hope that they reach out for counseling, because this is a horrendous incident. If we describe, probably Phil and I, the biggest incident of our career was we were all 9/11 responders, and we saw all the death and destruction from that day, and worked in the morgue and worked on the pile digging for bodies and all of that stuff. And I think many people, if I can compare something, and this incident is no way comparable to 9/11. They have equal horrors, but that's a traumatic experience. And I hope that people that responded to the World Trade Center, if they need it, to get counseling.
Well, all the members of the NYPD were mandated to speak to a counselor at some point post 9/11, but I think they just wanted to hope and pray that if someone wasn't able to deal with it, that they would come forward. And I had some issues with nightmares and stuff, and it took me a couple of years to reach out through the 9/11 medical monitoring and get into some counseling and stuff. But thank God I did, because over time I wouldn't say it erased it, but it definitely, the nightmares that I was having did stop. And, you don't think it's related, but you go through these traumatic events, and they're internalized, and they come out in different ways. And for me, it was coming out through nightmares.
It's funny when Phil, there's always funniness in every story, but I was being interviewed by a psychologist from 9/11 when I was down there, and she was Russian, and she says, "Oh, I see that you drink." I can't do a Russian accent. "You drink X amount of drinks every week." I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, I think that's a bit excessive." I say, "I don't think it's excessive. I'm fine. I'm happy. I come home. I don't beat my wife. I don't beat my children. I have a happy life." I go, "You're Russian. You're probably drinking a bottle of Stoli a week." That was the end of the interview.
Yeah. Well, listen, alcoholism is obviously prevalent in law enforcement, and that's the one thing that they try to hope, because a lot of times alcoholism could lead to a suicide. And when you're making life and death decisions in split seconds, they want you to be on your best, best footing, I guess you could say. So there's a real sensitivity towards that. And there was a time when I was being interviewed for promotion, and you write out, what your alcohol intake is. And I think I said during the course of an evening, I might have 2 drinks. And the counsel looked at me and says, "Oh, that seems like you said, it seems exciting." I go, "Listen, if I'm eating and I have 2 drinks during the course of a 4 or 5 hour party, that's not excessive, nothing to worry about."
The medical profession thinks, like, if you have 2 glasses of wine, oh my God, I'm
Yeah, I
like,
think
shut up.
he was trying to caution that, well, I'm not trying to say you're a heavy drinker, but it could lead to that. And, if you're
Right,
drinking
right.
2 drinks now and, you've been through all of these things in your career. And it was towards the end of my career. I was, when I got promoted to 2nd grade, from 3rd grade. And I guess it was, 2001. It was when I went for that
Detective
interview.
Grimaldi, I see you drink Sambuca, and the fact that you don't know that there's 3 beans in Sambuca, I find that quite disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nikki Bella, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. Hi, Bill and Phil. Love your true facts of the law. Thank you, Nikki Bella, for being such a great supporter of us. We really appreciate that. You guys are great. I mean, as I said, we had to cover this story today, even though we were reluctant to do so. Giacomo Rochester, USA, before putting your nose into business of everyone in the world, sort out your proxy country. Giacomo, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I should have read that before I read it out loud, but you obviously have some kind of ill feelings toward the USA. But something, I'm not going to get political. I'll stop.
Bill, real quick, I just
want
want to say one thing about that. There's something to that. Sometimes the United States could probably pull back on like what's going on around the world, and there's something to that. But yeah, you're right. This is not a day or a time to start getting into politics.
No, absolutely not. So, folks, something, what we're going to talk about now, it's hard to segue into this after such a hugely important story, but Gonzalo Lopez would just give a quick update on this case. There's not a great deal to talk about. This is day number, I believe, 12. As you can see on the screen, there's a $50,000 reward for Mr. Lopez. No one knows where he is right now. They have changed course a bit. They're not searching in the same area, that same 5-mile square area. And we haven't heard much. I've searched the internet. I've searched the news reports. I haven't seen the Minister of Misinformation on the screen giving any more information about this case. But if we do get new information, we surely will report on Gonzalo Lopez. Right now, as we said, it's day number 12. He's missing. Everyone insists he went to Mexico. He did have some connection with the Mexican mafia. So if we get any new information, we will definitely get back to that case. Now, the other case we've been covering, of course, is the case of Kaitlin Armstrong, who is wanted. There's actually an arrest warrant for her for the shooting murder of Moriah Wilson, who is a professional bicyclist, and this is being talked about by the media as a triangle, as a love triangle. So let me just play a little bit of this, and there's not a great deal of new information. She is, however, missing, and they're searching for her.
A professional cyclist. U.S. Marshals are looking for Kaitlin Armstrong. She's accused of killing Moriah Wilson nearly 2 weeks ago here in Austin. Police say the victim had a brief relationship with the suspect's boyfriend last year.
And investigators say that made Armstrong angry. And now there's new information that could help find her. KVU's Matt Fernandez is live in East Austin with surveillance video from the night of the murder. Hi, Matt.
Hello. Yeah, U.S. Marshals are trying to find a black Jeep Grand Cherokee that was seen leaving this area where Wilson was staying. They're also trying to track down suspect Kaitlin Marie Armstrong as well. Now, Moriah Wilson was well known in the cycling community. She was staying with a friend in the Austin area ahead of a race in Hico. Wilson was found unconscious in an East Austin home on May 11th. Now investigators say suspect wanted in the connection of her murder is Kaitlin Marie Armstrong. U.S. Marshals say she was a yoga teacher and a realtor. Police uncovered information that Wilson had previously a relationship with a man whom Armstrong was involved with, according to authorities. Now, according to an affidavit in this case, Wilson and Armstrong's boyfriend went swimming at Deep Eddy Pool the day she was killed. They then went to eat, and they dropped her off at a house on Maple Avenue where Wilson was staying. We have surveillance video that shows an SUV leaving where Wilson was staying. Authorities are now trying to find that vehicle. It's a black Jeep Grand Cherokee, and U.S. Marshals say they got about 30 tips, but really need the public's help in finding Armstrong.
We always take our investigations and we start here locally. We're going based upon the facts. And those facts, if those facts lead us outside of Austin or they lead us outside of the state of Texas, then we react. And that's the very unique thing with the Marshal Service, who was established in 1789, is all that communication has already been established. We can reach out if we get a lead to, a surrounding state.
The family of Anna Moriah Wilson issued a statement. In part, it says, "We are absolutely devastated by the loss of our beautiful daughter and sister, Anna Moriah Wilson. There are no words that can express the pain and suffering we're experiencing due to this senseless, tragic loss. Moriah was talented, kind, and a caring woman." The family also added that Wilson was not in a romantic relationship with anyone at the time of her death. U.S. Marshals say if you have any information in this case, you're asked to call law enforcement.
So, folks, that's where we're at with that case right now. Of course, they're searching for her. There's been a lot of criticism of law enforcement in regards to they had her in custody on what turned out to be a warrant that was not an active warrant. So at some point during their interview of her, they told her that she was free to go. And I think that they took a high level of caution, worrying that she was apparently in custody on a warrant that wasn't active. So they felt they didn't want to lose the case. And so law enforcement may have determined that they didn't have what's necessary to hold her, which is, of course, probable cause. So for that reason, they may have let her go. But again, just like in the Brian Laundrie case, maybe before they let her go, they should have had some surveillance on her.
Two things, Billy. One, I did read that there was a sighting somewhere in Florida in a breakfast restaurant, a waitress that served someone that looked similar to her, and she called that in. So there's a possibility. I'm sure a lot of tips are coming in. There's a possibility she may have been in Florida. With regard to what you're talking about, whether or not they held her, it sounded like to me that she said to them she couldn't explain how they had her video, her vehicle on video at the location. She had no explanation for it. So at that point, she might have said, "Listen, am I under arrest?" And they didn't have probable cause, like you said. They were holding her on a warrant, or they picked her up on a warrant that wasn't valid. So they said, "No, you're not under arrest." And she probably said, "I'd like to leave." And then she left. And, it was early on in the investigation. Now you have the subsequent recovery of the firearm that belonged to her that matches possibly the murder weapon. You have other video. You're probably going to have cell phone tracking information. And now they go to arrest her. They get the warrant and she's in the wind. It seems like the vehicle, they're talking about that black vehicle that she may have left with that vehicle. Whether or not she has it, we don't really know. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of information coming forward. And anybody that's going to criticize law enforcement, we don't know that much detail about whether or not they did surveil her or they didn't. However, they didn't have the right to hold her. I'm sure if they did, they would have never let her go. So I don't know if the criticism is right at this point. So let's just wait and see what the facts are that come out about this case.
Antonio, the person in the chat that was basically bad-mouthing the U.S., I removed him. I have moderators, but I don't know if they're active right now. So I worked as a moderator and I removed him from the chat. I don't need to hear his nonsense. Bob Cosmic, Kaitlin just messed up her whole world. She should have just kept it moving and make her boyfriend the ex and move into the next. But oh no, she made the worst choice ever. She'll get picked up soon. I agree with you, Bob.
Of course.
I'm going to play a little bit of Ashley Banfield. We're going to share this on the screen. Hope I got the...
People now who know what it takes to hunt for a fugitive, man or woman, and what it's like to be hunted, and if it's different if you're a woman. Dan Eckert is an attorney. He is also a former federal prosecutor and a special agent. And Seth Ferranti spent 2 years on the run from the U.S. Marshals, eventually making their most wanted list. And after his capture, he spent 21 years in federal prison. So he knows a thing or two. Gentlemen, thanks. Dan, I'm going to begin with you if I can. They let her go. I found that odd. Yes, okay, the misdemeanor, it wasn't the right paperwork, but don't you keep a real eagle eye on someone like that so that, this doesn't happen and it becomes a woman hunt?
Yeah, that's very problematic, I think, for the law enforcement officials involved in this case. I mean, I read the affidavit earlier today and saw that they had her at least in police custody. They were questioning her, and there were a lot of details which you've just discussed that show that she had some involvement, or at least was at the location of the murder. I'm really curious as to what steps they took. Aside from arresting her, again, what things did they do to surveil her, to try to track her, to try to keep an eye on her, because she's obviously a prime suspect in this investigation.
Seth, you have been in her shoes. I mean, literally, you've been on the run in the exact position on this exact day, trying to figure out what do I do next. What do you think she's thinking at this moment? It's only been, a couple, not 2 weeks-ish. And so this is, I don't know if desperation has already set in. Did desperation set in minute one? Do you think it's different because she's a woman?
No, I think it's the same, whether you're a man or a woman, you just have this urge, to just escape. Anytime you find yourself in a situation, especially a situation like this, that involves law enforcement and they're looking for you. I mean, just that urge to get away, that urge to escape, that urge to remove yourself from the situation is so strong. I felt that urge. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to kind of escape the reality so I could kind of process what was actually happening.
Seth, she's a yoga teacher, so I can only assume she understands, how to bring in the Zen. I don't know how she could find the Zen in a moment like this, but it does, lead to a better question, which is, are you so frantic in these early days that you blindly run? Or in these early days, are you thoughtful, methodical, and strategic? Or is it different for everybody?
I think it comes down to the classic, fight or flight. Some people in that fight or flight moment, they can really think about what's going on. They can get real methodical. They can plan. They can get strategic, like you said. But other people are just like in the wind. They're just running because they're frantic. I mean, with her, I don't know her, so I couldn't say, what the situation is. But, being that she is a yoga instructor, if she can find that inner calmness, maybe she is, doing a lot of strategic planning. Maybe she is like trying to remove herself and get as far away from the situation as possible.
I wonder if she's cut off all that, beautiful red hair, which is like a red flag, Dan. And also, and here's the big thing, I'm assuming that federal agents, U.S. Marshals, and any other jurisdiction that's on the hunt for this woman have locked onto her family and her friends and anybody else she might find support from. Is that kind of how they begin the fan out? Keep eyes on the people she may be knocking on the back door of for a, sandwich?
Yeah, exactly. Just like in other cases that, we've discussed in the recent past. I mean, there are so many people out there that are going to have interest in this case because of the publicity that your show and other shows are bringing, that they're going to be getting phone calls. I mean, this is, the marshals are taking the lead on this case, apparently. And the way the marshals work, it's not what a lot of people think, that it's just, the U.S. Marshals, just the federal agents that are deputized as marshals. They've got task forces throughout the country. And what they do is they cross-designate or deputize local, state officers to work on their task force. So what you do is you've multiplied now your sources of information, not just from the federal level, but you have these individual police officers and detectives that have whole armies of informants for various cases, drug cases, fraud cases. Those sources will be engaged and will be tapped into to see if they know anything about this person's whereabouts. So,
I don't think she's going to be that difficult to find. Someone in the chat keeps or asks, do you think she could have taken her own life? And I think that's very possible. Now, when she realizes, there's Karen Broderick. Does anybody think she has already taken her own life? That's a good possibility, because now, she realizes that she just threw her life away, committing this, if in fact she did commit this atrocious act of murder. But now, she's not a criminal. I don't think she's going to be that difficult to find.
Billy, I don't think I'm getting the feeling, she She didn't run away right away. She was interviewed by the police. It's obvious that she was involved in it. She takes off. I think if she was going to have committed suicide, I think we would have heard about it already. I'm not feeling that she killed herself. I just got that feeling. Is it possible? Of course it is. She's in a desperate situation. Who wants to go to jail for 25 years or more? No one. So I guess she's desperate. Maybe if things become even more desperate, maybe she will take her own life. But I'm just getting a feeling. No, I don't think so. I'm not seeing that in this case. I'm seeing her on the run. And like you said, she's not going to be that hard to track down. Her face is all over the media. She's going to maybe change her appearance. But, there's when I was in the private investigation business, there's comprehensive reports that give a ton of information, and that's on the outside of law enforcement. I had access to comprehensive reports that you worked hand in hand with law enforcement, but law enforcement, obviously, federal agency will have better information, better link analysis, linking this person to relatives wherever they are all over the map. And I'm sure that the United States Marshal Service is all over it, and it's just going to be a matter of time before they locate her.
Bill, let's go to a quick commercial break here.
Joe Murray, attorney at law. Have you found yourself in a jam? Are you in need of legal counsel in the New York area? Do you need a victim's advocate? Well, Joe Murray is your man. He's not only an experienced trial attorney, he's also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. He literally knows both sides of the fence. His website is jmurray-law.com. His telephone number is 646-838-1702, or you could email Joe at joe@jmurray-law.com. Looking for a vacation oasis? The Comfort Inn Oceanside in sunny Deerfield Beach, Florida has you covered. Take a dip in the outdoor heated pool with a water slide for the kids, have a cocktail poolside, or relax in the Oasis Courtyard Lounge. Just a short walk to the best restaurants and the Deerfield Beach International Fishing Pier. Soak up the sun, swim in the pristine blue ocean, or stroll along the famous beach. Maybe enjoy a sunset from a beachside restaurant. Guests enjoy a complimentary breakfast and a fresh brewed coffee 24/7. If you mention police off the cuff at booking, you'll receive a 20% discount. So book your stay today by calling 954-428-0650.
Well, folks, that's basically our show for today. We sort of went off script when this active shooter case happened in Texas. Again, a very disturbing case, a case that is not the whole true story is not out there yet. And if we have more information, potentially we'll bring you more information tomorrow. But it's a huge tragedy. And we want to say prayers for the people that lost their young children in this horrible caper here. Phil, last words?
Last words, condolences, thoughts, prayers. It's very upsetting. If you have children, you'll know the bond that you have with your children. If you don't have children, anyone in the world that doesn't have children, I'm sure, most people like children. It's terrible. It's heart-wrenching. This is a hard one today to go through this. I was telling Billy, I don't know if I can make it through a show without actually breaking down about it, but everyone just keep some nice thoughts, say some prayers. That those families, they're going to go through something that no one should ever have to go through or experience. And thank God for our law enforcement officers that stopped this animal from his rampage. And God bless those families, and God bless those little children.
Yeah, 100%. Folks, again, thank you so much for being fans, subscribers, listening to us as we present these cases. I want you to have a great night, safe night, and we'll see you very soon.
Stay safe, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.